Welcome to the Infrastructure Podcast. My name is Anthony Oliver, and today we are taking a closer look at infrastructure's use of data and how emerging digital technologies and AI tools are shaping and transforming the way we manage our built and natural environment. To help me, I'm joined today by James Lee, the new Chief Operating Officer at global infrastructure giant Bentley Systems, in a quiet corner of the annual Year in Infrastructure Tech Gathering and Celebration in Amsterdam. Well, it's clearly a moment when global infrastructure delivery faces unprecedented pressures, from net zero targets and climate resilience to skills shortages and digital transformation. And as we've been hearing at the event this week, Bentley stands at the intersection of engineering and innovation with a mission to close the gap between what the world demands and what we're able to deliver, as Chief Executive Nicolas Cumins put it this week. So, a lot to chat through with James today. He joins Bentley after a 2-decade career spanning Google Cloud and SAP, and so I think brings a unique perspective on the operational challenges, AI integration, and the power of partnerships to drive transformation at scale. So let's explore how James plans to align these innovations with the realities of infrastructure delivery. James, welcome to the Infrastructure Podcast.
Thank you, Anthony. What a pleasure to be here.
Great. Well, there's a lot to talk through. As I was saying, you joined Bentley in January at a time of rapid technological and market change. But let's get some basics. How do you define your role, the COO's role, in steering the company through this next phase?
Yeah, the Chief Operating Officer role is an interesting one. In my case, I have quite a broad portfolio of activities under me, starting from
that, yes.
Yeah,
that's quite a list.
From corporate strategy to M&A to partnerships, ecosystem to pricing, commercial models, and then also to IT, data security, support, and then I have a unique set of businesses that we call kind of the growth portfolio. And they tend to be businesses that require a special touch, a different organizational approach, et cetera. And so China and Japan and asset analytics business fall into that umbrella.
Okay, well, we can talk about those as we chat through today. But I mentioned Nicolas Cumins' ambitions to close this gap between what the world demands and what we can deliver. So how do you see yourself helping to translate those into operational priorities and objectives?
We are indeed living in a very exciting time. As Nicolas alluded to, there's no shortage of project, and both in terms of new projects, but also retrofitting existing infrastructure. And if you think about the number of engineers that we have in this world, there simply aren't enough people in this profession.
That was another point he was making,
right, to keep up with the demand. Right, so that means technology plays a very critical role. And when I say technology, we're all living in the age of AI now. AI plays a critical role in helping match supply with demand. And so that it's under that, I would say, that mandate that we are all driving forward and thinking about, okay, how can we build the best solution for our accounts and users to enable them to meet the demands of, existing and new infrastructure projects.
Yeah. So your background in AI and cloud transformation at Google presumably gives you a huge leg up. What lessons do you bring there in terms of driving operational excellence and new partnerships at Bentley?
It is indeed a very interesting time. I had a front row seat when I was at Google running their startups and AI business. So my job when I was at Google was really to drive adoption of Google's large language models, their agentic services, and their compute infrastructure. Mm-hmm. And during that phase, I had the opportunity to work with not just Google's own AI team, but also a lot of what we call AI native companies who are building their models or building applications on top of existing models. And there were two things that dawned on me. One was the fact that there's a lot of competition and focus on very large, complex models, but the next battlefield is going to be won or lost in more verticalized models, meaning that specific domains and specific verticals where you have smaller models, but they're built fit for purpose for a particular use case.
Right. Yeah.
And infrastructure is obviously one of those use cases. And then the second trend I noticed was, you start to see the merging of the digital world and the physical world. And what that translates into is how do you leverage all these language models to unlock value for the physical world? Yeah. And once again, that's all about how do you help build, design, operate infrastructure.
Yeah.
Right. And both of these led me to Bentley, who was obviously a leader in this space. And I just felt, wow, like what a great time to be a positive disruptor.
Yeah. Well, we heard a lot. We have been hearing a lot in this week about the year in infrastructure about the growing power of AI, as you put it, across infrastructure. But we also hear an awful lot. We heard about this notion of context, this project context, the environmental context, the engineering context, which is really vital when you are actually designing AI tools in infrastructure. What does it really mean in practice to you then, this notion of context?
Everything that we do in AI is underpinned by the concept of trustworthy AI. And that's probably a term that you picked up yesterday. And trustworthy AI means a number of things. First and foremost, it means that our users' data will always be their data, meaning that we respect and we protect users' data, and we have a framework and discipline in terms of how we govern, how we think about data security. So that's first and foremost. Secondly, you brought up the topic of context.
Yeah.
Right. So context means that you're not getting a kind of cookie cutter model or AI application where you have to then go figure out the use cases for. Context means that we are training these models and we're preparing these models based off project context, meaning that, hey, what are the constraints and time and cost and materials? We're basing these off environmental context, which is, subsurface, on top surface, right? Like what are all the environmental factors you have in the infrastructure? Thirdly, it's based off institutional data because data doesn't exist in a vacuum, right? So presumably you have a wealth of information that dates back decades, et cetera. We want to take those into consideration. Mm-hmm. And lastly, it's about engineering context, right? You can never defy the laws of, gravity and physics, et cetera. So you put all those together, then you start to see an AI model and an AI software solution that's very much fine-tuned for the infrastructure space. I
mean, you mentioned it. And this phrase about trustworthy data, and I certainly did pick up on that. And I picked up on there's a whole world of ethics around whose data you're using and where you use your client's data and when you don't use your client's data when it comes to AI training. How is Bentley ensuring that AI systems that you're building are trained on this so-called trustworthy data in an ethical way?
Yeah, that's very central to what we do. And if you think about the models that we provide in kind of two levels, right? So there's what Bentley puts together, and here we explicitly ask for permission from our users to use their data to train the model, right? And in some cases, we also pay to license data that goes into training the model, right? Then once the applications are with the users, right, they can then fine tune it with their own data to make it even more specific to their use cases, right? And for the fine tuning, we do not take any of that data.
The point is that you do it with their permission,
right? We do it with their permission,
Yeah.
And this is something we are very proud of. It's an approach that not every software company subscribes to, but we believe that this is a non-negotiable and it's very central to everything that we do.
Yeah, and that's really, I suppose, because you need to know what the provenance of all the data is that is being used in the AI tools or by the AI tools.
Right. And it's also about, one of the things that we also talked about yesterday was the launching of the co-innovation initiative. And the idea behind that is we don't have all the answers. It's an exploration with our users to understand how they're going to use AI. What are the new ways that they can improve their business? So it's a journey that we take on together. Yeah.
And presumably as that journey continues, well, I can only imagine those challenges get tougher and tougher because, as you're using AI tools to create derivations of existing products, you get more and more of a meld, a mashup of lots and lots of different ideas, and you've got to try to make sure that you are maintaining the provenance of each of those ideas along the way.
Oh, absolutely. And then the human brain has no limit, right? I think about all the use cases. Sometimes, I have two kids, right, and sometimes I see them playing around with ChatGPT, with Gemini, et cetera, and the things that they're doing with it. I'm like, wow, I never thought of this, these new use cases, right? So we can only imagine as we're going through this co-innovation initiative, what are all the new things we're going to learn?
Yeah, but I suppose you could compare that with an engineer remembering what he or she did on their past projects and bringing that into their new ones. I suppose the artificial intelligence is doing a similar thing.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's not just about the individuals who are working on it, right? What we intend to do is bring together all the collaborators onto a single platform. So yesterday you may have heard us talked about some of the new developments in our platform.
Yeah.
Bentley Infrastructure Cloud Connect is exactly what we're trying to do here. Have a foundational layer where people can bring their data and collaborate, right? And hopefully then leverage, our AI capabilities, be it project-wise or asset-wise, to work together.
We'll drill into that a little bit more in a moment. But I suppose at a slightly higher level, I mean, how do you see AI reshaping the engineering workflows? You've come from Google and SAP, where you've seen that transformation, I imagine, already. But how do you see it transforming the design and construction all the way through to asset management?
It is, I would say, the hype around AI is real. Sometimes people ask me, "Hey, James, like you've been in this AI world, is this legit?" And absolutely so, right? AI,
the hype in terms of its ability to transform.
Exactly, right. So AI is not just about efficiencies and cost reduction, et cetera, right? For sure.
Yeah.
That's what AI can do, right? But it's also about reimagining how you can do business.
Yeah.
Right? In the case of what we are doing with Bentley, think about you as an engineer during the design phase, right? Because of the physical limitations, time limitations today, right? You can only go through a few iterations of design, right? Simply because you don't have enough time to do. But imagine AI, you could run iterations, thousands and thousands of different designs, right? And you can pick the best one, right? That changes the game, right? And in the asset operations and maintenance space, which is something that's very near and dear to our heart, given the asset analytics business that I run, we are leveraging AI to help Department of Transportation authorities understand the conditions of roads, of pavements, et cetera, to ensure that they can do this in a high precision, low cost, and minimize accidents.
Yeah, and that is at the heart of, as you mentioned earlier, this Infrastructure Cloud Connect, where you're bringing together asset-wise with project-wise. So you're actually making it easier for professionals to think about how they manage assets while they're designing the assets.
Yeah, the point being, we want engineers and asset owners to build resilient infrastructure. And the resilience is very, very important to us, in the age of, urbanization, energy transition, and just allowing local communities to thrive, right? So any tools that we can provide to engineers to build more resilient infrastructure will make lives better.
So the tools basically enable you to run scenarios about how that asset will be managed in the future while you're actually designing it.
Absolutely. Just last night, I was having dinner with one of our accounts, and I was blown away by how they are using Bentley, and particularly Bentley's AI capabilities, to actually restore and repair historical sites. I never thought of it. I always thought about it as, okay, what are the infrastructure that we see today and we're building, right? But I never thought about looking back into the past. Infrastructure that existed hundreds or thousands of years ago, where you may only have remnants of it subsurface, and they're now using iTwin, Cesium, Sequin, MicroStation in ways that we never thought possible, to now rebuild those historical sites.
Well, it's interesting that you talk about your conversations with your clients, because there was a quote from one of the presentations this week was, "We know how to build software, but the software isn't for us." I mean, how does that philosophy shape your product development? How are you tapping into those users you talk to actually shape what you're designing?
Yeah, Anthony, if there's anything I've learned in my career in the B2B space, it's the user is a voice of truth.
Right.
That is always my true north. I start with listening to the user, understanding what are their pain points, what are their concerns, how can we make their lives easier, and then you go build something that's specific to what they need. Right. And that has always been my true north, and I continue to believe it today at Bentley, that we listen to our users, we work hand in hand with them, and we build software that's by engineers and for engineers.
I mean, I suppose there's one argument that suggests that if they haven't got it, they don't know they need it. But the point being, though, that everything you do has to have a value and a use in the real world.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things people wonder about, especially AI, is, wow, like, is AI going to replace my job? Like, what does it mean for my career as an engineer?
Yeah.
But I believe AI has the ability to actually 10x engineers' productivity. The point isn't about replacing humans. The point is, how can we supercharge their productivity, right? So humans become superhumans.
Yeah. Well, certainly when you look at the power of the visualization tools that you've got, and you've built around the Cesium platform with the use of Unreal engines, which is, of course, people will be familiar with in the gaming industry. It's that kind of really realistic kind of visualization. And you talk about technologies such as Gaussian splat, mesh reconstructions, etc., etc. I mean, it's amazing stuff. But as it was pointed out, that visualization is just the start. You need to be to be able to actually use that data. And I suppose, how is Bentley therefore moving from the visualization and the sexy, incredibly attractive fly-through products, etc., to actual true data intelligence?
Yeah, if you think that's a great question, by the way, Anthony. If you think about our digital twin, our iTwin platform, right? It's both our data platform and our visualization platform.
Yeah.
Sometimes people think about digital twin and it's only about the visualization. That's a big part of it, right? But it's also about how do you bring data from different sources in an interoperable way, and that you can collaborate seamlessly, right? And then based on that data, you can then create and manipulate and simulate visual depiction of infrastructure, right? And you talked about, Gaussian splat. You talked about reality mesh. There's a lot of technology there that can make it just very, very realistic. We're also partnering with Google to get their geospatial data, right? I mean, this space is advancing in such a pace.
Yeah. Is that the difference that you might suggest is between a visualization that maybe Google would come up with and a visualization that Bentley, that there is true data intelligence behind that visualization?
Yeah, we solicit data from different sources, right? And so our idea is that, hey, Google data being part of it, right? But we have other, data from satellite images, from dash cams, etc., right? And it's not about just the visualization, but it's also the processing of that image, like you said, right? Like, how do you bring intelligence to the data? And here I go back to what we were talking about with asset analytics again, right? What's so powerful with what we're doing there, especially with the AI, is we take all these different data, we have a computer vision AI model, and we process it, and we find insights from the data, and we're then able to go to the end users and tell them that, hey, look, here's an inventory of the assets that you have, right? Here are the conditions of their assets. Here are some things that you should consider, right? Depending on you need to maintain it or not, et cetera. So they get ahead of the curve, right? Instead of having to wait until something breaks, right? They already have the insights to act upon them.
Yeah. So what are the most exciting product innovations that you see on the horizon? And give us a sort of a view of what you see in the future. What could make infrastructure delivery more intelligent, more sustainable?
If you had a chance to listen to the keynote yesterday, and we announced a series of what we call the next generation AI applications, those are the most exciting for me. From the design side, you saw OpenSite Plus is now in private preview, right? Private availability. Sorry. You see, we have Open Utility Plus Substation. We're bringing in new AI capabilities to ProjectWise, to Synchro Plus, to Open Road Design and Open Bridge Design, and we're also in the construction side. We're working on bring new AI capabilities to the way that you simulate and model construction plans.
There seems to be a lot of emphasis on the user experience, actually helping engineers, technicians to access a lot of this technology. I mean, I imagine it's something which your background in Google must benefit from, because the advantage, what Google has done incredibly well is make these incredibly powerful tools really, really kind of second nature.
Anthony, I love how knowledgeable you are about this topic, because this is something I myself have been thinking about, right? People sometimes ask me, hey, James, you've seen a lot of AI companies. What's going to separate the winners from the losers, right? I say three things. one, going back what we talked about with trustworthy AI, the context.
Yeah.
It's all about the context, the data you have that makes the model come alive. Number two, it's about understanding and managing the end-to-end workflow. The more integrated you are to the workflows of your users, the more they can extract value out of it. And third, and certainly not least, is a user experience.
Yeah.
You have to continue to delight your users. It has to be so seamless. It has to be so friendly. It has to relate to them. Otherwise, it doesn't matter how great your technology is. They're not going to use it.
No. Well, I remember, just an aside, I remember when I was working as an engineer with Moss, which of course used to be as a precursor to the Bentley Road software. And we used to peer through the black screen, through the DOS black screen to try to work out what was going on. And you had to literally run a program to get a 3D string visualization. So that user experience has moved on one hell of a lot.
Oh, I remember those days. Trust me. I was right there with you.
All right. Well, let's talk a bit about you, James. You live in Seattle. And as I mentioned, you joined Bentley from Google in January. And we'll talk a bit more about that in a moment. But before, you spent 12 years at SAP, including a role as general manager of sales for SAP Greater China. What did that fast-moving Chinese world bring to your kind of career development?
It was a fantastic time and a fantastic experience. When I was at SAP, China was still a relatively nascent and small business, right? And during the 4 years I had the privilege of working on that business, we were able to triple the size of the business and got it to one of the fastest growing markets in the world for SAP. And I had a front row seat in terms of building a new business in China, be it how do you land cloud products in China, building JVs with local technology providers so that you could have your data centers there, right? How do you build an ecosystem of partners in a nascent market? How do you incentivize and enable your sales force?
Yeah.
And most importantly, I learned a lot about how do you localize product, right? In this case, it was for China, right? But the experience transcends that, and I learned how do you understand the requirements of the local market and then build products that are fit for purpose.
Yeah, because so that's the real integration of technology with business, which of course you underline. You're an MBA from Harvard Business School, a Bachelor of Commerce from the University of British Columbia. I mean, how effectively would you say the worlds of tech and business overlap or are overlapped now? Can you be effective in business and free-thinking, innovative technology?
That is a great question. I see the relationship between technology and business as one that's very highly symbiotic.
Yeah.
You can't have one without the other. If you think about building technology, at the end of the day, you're there to serve business priorities, business goals, et cetera. Like technology never exists just for the sake of technology. You can have great tech, right? But there's no use case. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
Similarly, it's very difficult to drive business growth without technology underpinning it.
Yeah.
Right. So if you think about the world that we live in now, the businesses who are able to adopt new technology, specifically AI, will be the ones who are able to extract value and supercharge your growth. Conversely, those who are not adopting and keeping pace with the latest technology will be left behind.
Yeah. Well, meanwhile, you've also got a diploma in piano performance from the Royal Conservatory of Music. Do you still play? Is that your escape from technology?
It is, and thank you for bringing that up. It's been a passion of mine. At one point in my life, I thought about being a concert pianist,
Oh, right,
and
wow.
that was a passion of mine throughout my youth. I kept up with it by competitions and performance, etc. Classical piano, in particular, has been a getaway for me of sorts, right? And I still play, maybe not to the extent that I used to. Now I spent more time actually teaching my kids how to play the piano versus performing myself. Nevertheless, it's still very rewarding to me.
Yeah. But I imagine that if managing the pressure of piano performance on a stage, that must set you up for many things in life.
It is funny. I actually find a lot of similarities between art and technology. Art, there's obviously an interpretive nature to it, but there's also a very logical nature to art, to music, and it follows a certain formula. It's actually very mathematical if you think about the rhythms and compositions, etc. Right? And I love that about music, right? Like music makes sense to me.
Yeah. And how old are your kids?
My kids are 8 and 11.
Yeah. So are they going to go music, do you think, or are they going to go technology or something else maybe?
Oh, with how fast the world is changing, I'm not even sure, what's going to happen in 10, 20 years. But, for me, as long as they're happy and they're healthy, that's all that matters.
Yeah. Well, as I'm sure as they taught you at Harvard, options have value.
Amen to that.
Well, let's talk a bit more about your experiences from Google. I know that openness certainly is an essential part of the technology journey. I mean, how do you see openness in data, APIs, and partnerships enabling Bentley's growth?
Openness is another core tenet of what we do here at Bentley. We believe in open platform. We believe in interoperability, which means that you can bring your data from different sources. They can work together seamlessly together. One of the big reasons that we're so excited about our acquisition of Cesium that closed last year is the fact that Cesium has such a large open source community and people are building on top of it. Yeah. And I myself, at a personal level, is also a big fan of open source because you can never bottle up innovation, right? One of the things I've learned at Google, particularly working with the Android team and with the cloud team, is that when you open up the platform for people to build and monetize, you tend to get the best kind of innovation. Yeah. And that's certainly the methodology and the principles that we subscribe to here at Bentley.
Well, certainly the AI revolution is upon us across every spectrum of life nowadays. But in many ways, the wave is only just beginning in infrastructure. I mean, where do you think infrastructure will really start to feel its impact?
We're already starting to feel the impact, right, in a very positive sense. If you think about the applications that we're building now, we are making the lives of engineers easier. They're able to do more with less. We're also helping asset owners and operators better understand the conditions of their assets, and they're able to then make smarter decisions. So I would say it's already dawning upon us, but the pace of innovation and disruption is only going to accelerate.
Yeah, particularly in asset analytics, which of course is another area which you look after, and life cycle intelligence. I mean, Bentley often speaks about connecting people to data across the life cycle. How close are we to achieving this seamless flow of information and data from project management to asset management that we spoke about earlier?
We're already starting to see some of those things pan out, right? I mean, we see some of our accounts and users leveraging the full suite of Bentley products from our desktop design products like MicroStation and OpenRoads, et cetera, to ProjectWise and Synchro during the construction phase, and then on to AssetWise for operation and maintenance, right? And having it all underpinned by our iTwin platform allows the data to flow seamlessly from one part of the life cycle to another. Yeah.
Well, I was joking with Nicolas yesterday about maybe what you're trying to do is finally make asset management sexy, make it something which is valued by investors and the public.
It's so funny that you mentioned that. Last week, I had the opportunity to sit on a closing panel for the American Society of Civil Engineers. They had their annual conference in Seattle, and one of the things that I talked about was infrastructure is sexy. And I got a loud cheer and clap from the audience, right? Because you don't tend to think of infrastructure as being sexy, but it is. From a point of the level of innovation, from a point of the impact that you have, right? It's absolutely sexy.
Yeah, no. Well, I remember the phrase that we once used when I used to be a magazine editor, which was around asset management, scraping dead cats off the highway. And it's a lot more sexy than that in reality.
It is.
Well, particularly with more private funding coming into public assets, investors now need to really understand the value of their assets and how they're going to be maintained. And is that a huge driver now for you?
Absolutely. Infrastructure is a constant, regardless of how the world changes at a macro level. You're always going to need infrastructure. Yeah. Right. And so this is also why we're seeing more and more public and private funding going into the infrastructure space. And I also think with the additional investments into it, there's also higher demand in terms of like, how do we monetize off existing and new infrastructure?
I suppose it's about AI helping engineers to truly understand their assets rather than just being able to monitor them.
Exactly. It's about in the asset analytics space, right, it's about getting ahead of the curve, as I mentioned, right? Having the insights that you need to then make decisions based off on, right? And if you look at today, how assets are operated and managed, there's still a very large part of it that's manual. You're sending people out there to collect data with a clipboard, right? You're taking photos, you're taking videos, then you come back and you then manually enter this information into a database. Well, it's very high cost and it's very manual and it's prone to error.
Yeah.
And what we try to do is to make the life of asset owners a lot easier by automating a lot of these tasks, right? And decreasing the error rate and actually do things that humans cannot necessarily do or scale, right? Meaning that, hey, now you have a computer vision that's able to track the conditions of the road at night.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's very hard for humans to do.
Yeah. But, and also it makes the whole operation safer. It makes sure that you're able to reduce the downtime of those assets.
Yeah, that's a very, very critical piece, which is the minimization of accidents. Right. So what we do here isn't just about numbers; it's also about saving people's lives.
Yeah,
and we take that vision very seriously.
Yeah, and making the working environment somewhere people want to be, I suppose. Finally, just to draw us to a close, your role also encompasses mergers and acquisition strategy. And it's fair to say that Bentley's grown through a whole range of smart acquisitions. You mentioned Cesium most recently. How important will consolidation acquisitions continue to be in the growth strategy for a business like Bentley?
Yeah, I would say first and foremost, M&A will continue to be something that's seriously considered by Bentley. But I would say we're very intentional about M&A, right? We want to ensure that we are acquiring companies that have synergies with us, that we see have are real complementary to the products and the people that we have today, right? And they fit certain areas of growth for us.
Yeah. Any particular technology domains or regions you're looking at the moment?
For example, asset analytics. We believe a high growth opportunity. There's a lot of use cases out there. This is a space that we're looking into.
There's no shortage of startups that are doing some really funky stuff which you're interested in.
Exactly. And I'm always of the opinion that, hey, you should complement internal innovation with external innovation, right? And as long as you're very thoughtful and intentional about it, you can deliver a great result.
What are the biggest challenges in terms of integrating new acquisitions? Is it cultural? Is it technical? Or is it strategic?
It's a little bit of everything that you mentioned, right? First and foremost, you want to ensure that the product that you're acquiring can be integrated and has a purpose next to the products that you have today, right? And secondly, it's about the go-to-market engine, right? How do you ensure that you don't miss a beat when you're onboarding new accounts and users onto your platform, and what is the relationship that they will have with Bentley now that the company has been acquired? And thirdly, that's equally, if not most important, is a cultural aspect. When you acquire a company, you're not just acquiring the product and the assets, you're acquiring the people, the human capital as well, right? Like, how do you ensure that people you acquire can have a rewarding and long-lasting career here at Bentley? Those are all things that I think about every day and night.
Well, looking ahead then, James, 9 months in, what's success look like for you personally as a COO?
It's been a very rewarding ride so far. 9 months in. One of the things I always tell people is the secret sauce behind Bentley's success is its culture. And Bentley has a very rewarding culture here. Everyone that you've met at Bentley, you probably see a commonalities. We like to roll up our sleeves. We like to be a little bit scrappy. We like to build things. And we have a lot of user empathy. We want to listen to our users and understand what they're going through, right? And that absolutely gels with my philosophy. And I've had a blast, and I will continue to have a blast here.
And so for Bentley then, for global infrastructure more broadly, what does the next decade look like?
Oh, if I had a crystal ball, I would say I wouldn't even look ahead in the next decade, right? Like, how is it going to be like in the next 2-3 years? Again, bring it back to AI, right? We're seeing AI creating new business scenarios for people to interact, to collaborate, et cetera, right? I think we're only starting to see the beginnings of how through technology we can tighten the level of integration and collaboration between different players within the infrastructure lifecycle, right? So if you were to ask me, I would say in the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to see the pace of collaboration accelerate.
Yeah. Well, it's fair to say that, I mean, Bentley as a company has changed a lot over the last few years, but it's reassuring that the enthusiasm and the technical expertise that people like you bring is reassuring that, that it looks like you're in great hands. So,
yeah, we've got a lot of passionate people here who believe in the mission, and I certainly count myself as one of them. Yeah. And we're going to work hard to make infrastructure sexy.
Yeah. Well, look, James, thanks so much for joining me today on the podcast. Great to meet you. Thanks for sharing your thinking about what is an incredibly exciting, incredibly challenging, nevertheless, time in the market. So thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Anthony.
Great. Look, James, brilliant to meet you. Sadly, that's all we've got time for on the podcast today, but we've got more from the Infrastructure Podcast in the pipeline and more guests to talk to as we continue to probe the big issues faced across the sector. If you haven't done so already, do check out the Infrastructure Podcast website, www.infrastructure-podcast.com, where you'll find background information and all the latest podcasts to listen to and to share. So thanks for joining us. Thanks again to James, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon.